Welcome to a very special conversation that I will have with Israeli Ambassador Reuven Azar, who will speak to NDTV at a time when the ceasefire, well, it expired on 1st of March, and what has happened in the last 24 hours has been fresh attacks on the Gaza Strip. What is the reason for it? What happens to that peace negotiations, which was fragile? And what's the future of this entire region, given the fact that as things stand, 59 hostages are still with Hamas. Peace talks have all but broken. What's the future ahead is what we'll get a word from Reuven Azar. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you, Gauri, for inviting me.
It's a tough time that we are speaking on, but one of the first things I want to ask you is that both parties are accusing the other of breaking the ceasefire, which is why you've seen those attacks that have taken place. What's the rationale for Israel to attack at a time when, which is also the holy month of Ramzan, where the attacks have taken place in the last 36 hours?
Well, Gauri, as you probably remember, we agreed to a 42-day temporary ceasefire in order to negotiate the resolution of this conflict, which means bringing back our hostages and make sure that Hamas cannot rearm and regroup and continue controlling the Gaza Strip. Unfortunately, Hamas has rejected the proposals of the American mediator time and again and has stopped releasing hostages. We had to go back to military pressure. This is something that is also backed by the United States, because if we cannot achieve this achievement diplomatically, we have to do it militarily.
Okay. So, but again, the accusation has been that there was no rejection by Hamas, because these attacks have been condemned by countries the world over. And what's the rationale for continuing it? And more importantly, how long are you going to continue these attacks?
Well, first of all, it is a fact that they rejected the American proposals because the American administration has stated that. So we are fully coordinated with our American friends, and condemnations cannot replace the fact that we have a terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip that is not only holding hostages from Israel, they are holding hostage the entire Palestinian population. They are taking the humanitarian aid that the world is sending, selling it to the population, blending into the population, and trying to extort a surrender from Israel. This is not going to happen. It's ridiculous. So what we expect from the international community is to put pressure on Hamas and create peace in our region through a diplomatic process that will take the top brass of Hamas out of Gaza, will give hope to the Palestinian people with a new moderate leadership that can actually allow real assistance from the world in reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, in a better future for Palestinian people. This is what is the common interest. So whoever says that we shouldn't use military power basically says that we have to surrender to a terrorist organization that will continue, having a grip on Gaza forever. This cannot be acceptable.
So phase one of the ceasefire expired on 1st of March. After that, Israel stopped aid into Gaza after that. It's been 17 days since then, 18 days since then. And while these attacks continue, the hostages and their families, in fact, I'm going to quote one of them, which says, one of the 3 former hostages, which says that military options endanger their lives directly. So what happens to those 59 hostages? Because their families are protesting, there are large protests that are taking place, and all of them are saying that if there are no talks, well, there are very little hope.
Well, first of all, Israel continues to supply water and electricity to the Gaza Strip. The trucks have stopped, yes, but there is enough food in the Gaza Strip. Now, it is right that when you start using military pressure, the stakes are higher and people might be put in danger. The question is, what is the alternative? At the end of the day, the only reason we have managed to bring back 195 hostages out of the 254 is because we used military pressure. So at the end of the day, you cannot bring back the hostages if we don't use military pressure. And that's why we had to renew it. It was very clear that in the second stage, Hamas is not agreeing to the terms that were proposed. They want to continue having a grip on the Gaza Strip so they can attack Israel again in the future.
There was never a second phase, right? There was only just a first phase. Second and third phase were just there in theory.
Well, it was there in theory. It could have been realized, if Hamas came to think logically and understand that their control of the Gaza Strip is over, that they have to relinquish power, that we can agree for them peacefully exiting the Gaza Strip to give a chance to the Palestinian population to build a better future.
I understand that the logic here is that after the ceasefire has expired, giving too much time to Hamas during a peace time, raises the possibility of them regrouping and possibly attacking. That's the rationale there. That makes sense. But the fact is, how long do we continue this cycle? Because one is you want to move beyond the present state. Then there is the question of hostages, and then there is a long-term peace negotiation. How do we move past that?
So there are two alternatives, Gauri. One alternative is that they will get to the conclusion that they want us to stop the military campaign, and they will go back to diplomacy in a constructive way. Okay? The second option is that they will not cooperate. And at that point, we will have to decide whether to renew our ground invasion, to take over the Gaza Strip, so we can clean it out from Hamas and transfer authority to a new power, a new moderate leadership, to international stakeholders that will take responsibility, that want to build Gaza again. So we prefer the first choice. We prefer to refrain from spilling blood. But if they don't give us any choice, we will have to enlarge this military campaign, and this can take a very long time.
This can take a very long time. And in fact, the Prime Minister is also on record saying that this will take a long time.
Yeah.
What is the long term that we are talking about here?
Well, look, it depends on the situation on the ground and the capability of the IDF forces. At the end of the day, it is not easy to create a situation in which you uproot a terrorist organization that actually is taking off their uniform, blending into the population, and trying to play hide and seek. Okay? So this will take time. It can take weeks, it can take months, we don't know. At the end of the day, what they have to understand is that we have the resolution, we have the resilience to continue with this, and we have the backing of the United States of America.
I was coming to just that do you think it's time for the Trump administration to invest more political capital into finding a solution when it comes to Gaza? Because they've proposed Trump Gaza, they've proposed reconstruction which takes Palestinians out of that land completely, but do you think it's time to now invest more political capital in finding a solution for the immediate?
Well, I think the Trump administration is really thinking outside the box, and not only that, is that they have decided by the renewed campaign against the Houthis that are undermining international trade, are terrorizing shipping companies, are extorting bribes out of them. They are sending a very clear message. They are going to give incentives to those who want to create peace, and they are going to do disincentives, negative incentives, and are going to strike those who are threatening peace. And I think this is a very important and consistent message that they are sending.
Okay.
We are in sync with that. I think that the only chance we have for peace in our region is when the radicals either are destroyed or they are put in a box.
Is the US on board with a long-term military plan that Israel has in mind?
As I told you, we are fully coordinated, and I think the administration...
For a long-term plan, not immediate. You mentioned long-term.
What the administration has said, and I'm just repeating what they said, they see a future of Gaza without Hamas. This is what has to happen. How it's going to happen, how long it's going to take, this is something that is completely up to Hamas. They can finish this by releasing the hostages that illegally took in a brutal way. They can finish this by relinquishing power in the Gaza Strip today.
Okay.
If they refuse, this can take a very long time.
Okay. Final question I want to ask you is that far-right elements far-right parties have come back to the government. They had exited when the ceasefire came in. They have now joined back the government. Does that mean no possibility of talks going forward? It's going to only be military action, whichever way and however long it takes?
No, because if, as I said, Hamas agrees to the terms, then we can have peace today, irrespective of the composition of the Israeli coalition. What the right-wing parties, or some of them, have said in the past is that they don't believe that Hamas is willing to relinquish power. So we gave a chance with this diplomacy. We gave a chance with this ceasefire, despite the fact that we knew that Hamas is going to use the ceasefire in order to rearm and regroup. So
Have they?
Of course. They have recruited thousands of people during the ceasefire. They have reorganized their headquarters. They have been trying to organize new invasions towards Israel. So we took that risk despite the fact that we knew it's going to be exploited by Hamas. But we wanted to give diplomacy a chance. And that's why some of the parties left. I think that now we are back in a situation in which we are using more pressure. We hope that this pressure will help in a speedy resolution of the conflict.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gauri.
Excellency, for speaking to us on an issue that, of course, has two sides. But at the same time, I end this discussion with what we started, which is that it is the holy month of Ramzan, and probably the most deadliest strikes since December 2023 have been taking place.
The peaceful Muslims that are coming to Jerusalem every day. 75,000 Muslims are coming to the Temple Mount every day. As we speak, we support freedom of religion.
Right.
What we are against is terror.
The terror organization Hamas. And let's hope that finally the talks brokered by the US have some sort of a long-term settlement. Thank you so much for this conversation.